Is learning to draw and keeping a drawing habit truly necessary when my objective is to become a painter? So chances are that if you've been part of any of my online communities for some amount of time, you're probably already well aware that I am a big believer in that drawing is the basis for all kinds of art. The artists that I admire, that I've learned so much from, all believe that drawing and painting are two sides of the same coin, essentially. Which means that instead of viewing drawing and painting as being two completely different activities that require completely separate skills, they see drawing and painting as being complements. If you increase your skills with one, this will translate into improving in the other area. And I 100% believe through having grown my own art skills and helping others grow their own, that if you know how to draw, you're gonna be able to move on to creating more successful paintings a lot quicker. And if you've already started to paint, incorporating a drawing or sketching practice is going to help you develop better paintings and increase your painting skills that you already have. In today's video, I'm going to be explaining the 6 main reasons why it is so important for any artist looking for deeper growth to learn to draw and develop a drawing habit. And I'm also going to be providing 3 practical tips that are going to help you get started with this practice in a less overwhelming way if this isn't something that you're already doing. Before getting into the reasons why learning to draw is so incredibly important, I want to explain something. In my opinion, there are 3 situations in which maybe you wouldn't really benefit from learning to draw. So the first situation being one in which the person is simply creating art for fun as a hobby and is just interested in learning how to apply color on a substrate. More of a paint by numbers situation in which you're not really interested in learning about value and 3D form and light and shadow. You just want to follow specific instructions and learn how to apply color on paper or on canvas. You're not really interested in doing the work and the practice to develop your understanding of essential fundamentals, such as 3D form, perspective, etc. If that makes you happy, then there really is no point in learning to draw. The second situation is one in which the person is only interested in creating very, very highly abstract art. And what I mean by highly abstract art is there is nothing representational or figurative that you can make out. So it's just color and shape and line on that substrate. What comes to mind is Jackson Pollock type paintings where paint is just thrown on the canvas in a random way. Another example of very highly abstract art where there is nothing representational or figurative is, for example, acrylic pouring, where you're just pouring paint onto canvas or whatever substrate with little to no control of your own. Perhaps you're planning what paint colors you're going to be bringing in for this type of artwork, but aside from that, you're not really planning the composition design very much at all, because the paint in and of itself and gravity and the environmental elements in the room that you're working in are all doing most of the work for you. Or maybe very highly abstract art where you're drawing very simple shapes, that kind of thing. That would just require very basic drawing skills as well. However, there are other types of abstract art where you do require planning and where those abstract pieces would be a lot more successful if you had planned your composition, if you had created those thumbnails showing the specific elements, their arrangement in space, and all of these things. And to do that type of planning, drawing does come in, as well as your knowledge of composition. And the third and final situation that comes to mind is if you are totally okay with depending on other artists' outline drawings in order to move on to the painting process. So in other words, you're okay with always relying on other people's compositions and other people's concepts and you're not really looking to build something up from scratch on your own. Anyone else outside from these three situations would greatly benefit from learning to draw, even if your style is going more towards the abstract end of the spectrum. If you don't know how to draw, you're going to be greatly limiting yourself, not to mention, at least in my opinion, very, very highly abstract art where you're just using the elements of art in their simplest, purest form, color, shape, line, texture, etc. Things tend to get boring very fast. Maybe not for the viewer, but for yourself as an artist, because you're just doing the same thing over and over and over again. And there is only a certain amount of things that you can do with those very simple elements of art. Now, to be clear, I don't think there is anything wrong with tracing, using grids, using a projector. Those kinds of things are okay. These are tools that we use as artists to make the process of creating art faster, more practical for ourselves, especially if we're short on time and have due dates for specific pieces. That is perfectly okay to use. However, it is one thing to use these tools when you already know how to draw out of practicality, and it's completely another thing to always be using these tools and never learning how to draw. And in fact, I know plenty of artists who lose their freehand drawing skills because they only rely on these tools and these methods for a long period of time, even if they knew how to draw. All right, so with all of those important notes out of the way, let me go ahead and explain the 6 main reasons why learning to draw is so important for any kind of artist. Reason number 1 is you won't have to rely on other artists' outline drawings in order to create your pieces. You won't be limited by their style and what they're offering and what they create. Reason number 2 is you'll be able to build up your own original artwork from scratch that has yourself in it, your hand in it, your vision in it, since the very beginning, since the start of that process. Reason number 3 is specific art fundamentals are only learned through drawing, such as 3D form, perspective, and even shading and light behavior. I would encourage you to learn that through drawing first, using simple drawing pencils before moving on to using paint, because it will make your learning journey a lot more easy. Not to mention, through drawing and using a simple pencil, you're able to continue developing your observational skills and your hand-eye coordination, which are essential artistic skills for any kind of medium that you want to be creating with. Reason number 4 is developing a drawing practice or habit is going to help you stay consistent with your art practice, even on days where you're extremely busy and you don't have the time, energy to get out those paints. When it comes to drawing, there is literally no excuse, because all you need is a pencil, some paper, maybe an eraser, and there is no cleanup involved. Reason number 5 why learning to draw is so important is because you're going to be able to draw and create artwork on site. Whether you're in a coffee shop, a park somewhere, wherever you are, you're going to be able to just grab that sketchbook and get on to drawing whatever you have in front of you. And finally, reason number 6 why learning to draw is so important is something that I briefly talked about before. And this is you're going to be able to plan your compositions before moving on to the final piece. I've talked about the power of thumbnailing before and how to use thumbnails for more successful artwork. I'll make sure to leave links to those videos and workshops down below. But as I said before, it doesn't really matter how abstract or how realistic your piece is going to be, what style it's going to be, what medium you're going to be using. Creating those quick, small thumbnail sketches using pencil, even marker, crayons, it doesn't really matter. But you need those drawing skills to create those thumbnails and plan those successful compositions. All right, moving on to the last part of today's video, and this is where I'm going to be providing the practical tips that are going to help you start incorporating drawing/sketching into your art practice in a less overwhelming way if this is something that you're not already doing. Tip number 1 is don't overcomplicate your drawing practice. In the past, I have shared videos, and I'll make sure to link to them down below, where I talk about the importance of quicker explorations, quicker practice, quicker sketches, timed drawings, that kind of thing, which help us develop skills that longer, more polished pieces don't help us develop. I also want to say that you can develop your drawing skills through using simple objects that you have around you at home. You can draw vegetables or fruits that you have in your kitchen, or a coffee mug, or create little still life arrangements with objects that you have at home and draw that. You can use reference photos or draw from direct observation. I would recommend doing both. And build up your drawing skills incrementally. I share tons of resources that you can check out to help you develop your abilities to simplify what you're observing as just basic forms and how to work from general towards specific, all that kind of stuff. But if you're just getting started, start small, start with simple single objects, and then make your way towards more complex still life arrangements or compositions with more objects or a larger variety of objects or more complex compound objects. Tip number 2 is remember that you don't have to create super polished, large drawings in order to develop great drawing skills. A lot of my own drawing practice I would see as sketching practice, where I am focusing on creating a solid preliminary outline drawing that I can then move on to painting. And this is something that is greatly ignored by a lot of beginners that just want to be creating a super polished piece, whether it's a drawing or a painting. Oftentimes, as a beginner, you're going to get a lot more growth through putting yourself through the process of creating those preliminary sketches from scratch over and over and over again to develop and get comfortable with the block-in phase and recreating shapes and proportions and perspective effectively, because in a sense, that is more difficult than moving on to shading. So if you do that process over and over and over again, just creating that preliminary sketch, focusing on the aforementioned things, you're going to build essential drawing skills that are going to help you pretty much draw anything you want. You can develop great drawing skills through quicker sketches. You can decide if you want to invest 20% of your art practice time to drawing or sketching and 80% to painting, or 30% to drawing and sketching and 70% to painting, whatever works for you. And finally, tip number 3 is use a sketchbook. Sketchbooks are such great tools for artists because you don't have to worry about wasting your precious art supplies or ruining everything. Your sketchbooks are where you go to practice, where you go to study and explore. It's a judgment-free zone. And I know that oftentimes we see these beautiful, perfect sketchbooks created by artists online, but I think for the majority of us, our sketchbooks don't look like that. I can tell you my sketchbooks definitely don't look like that. They are full of mistakes. There is lots of ugly art in there, and I love how practical and portable they are because they also help me stay consistent. I can take them with me to a meeting or to doctor's appointment where I know I'm going to have to sit and wait for a while. You can take your sketchbook on a trip, to a park, to a coffee shop. And there's nothing quite like a sketchbook to help you stay consistent because it's very rewarding to see how those pages are filling up with your work. I really hope that you found this one helpful. If you have any comments or questions, go ahead and leave them down below in the comment section, and I'll make sure to get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you so very much for joining me on this one. I wish you a wonderful rest of your day. Enjoy your art practice and see you very soon.